Okay, so if I could just get to know all of you.
Okay, I'll go first since I've turned on my video. My name is Ben Kerry Maweje. I have about 8 years of experience in the field of information technology. I am an independent contractor to one of the philanthropies in the world. I am doing MSCIS. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm in year 1.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon, team. My name is Joshua Kamlege. I am a station by profession, as well as an M&E from working with TASO. I am here for masters in information science, information systems. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
My name is Mwesugwa Gilbert. I work with Uganda Wildlife Authority, a first-year student, masters in ICT. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Nice to meet you. We see you guys here in Fort Portal. We have our forest and national parks here, so we see quite a number of you guys here. Yes, please.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
I'm Conrad Ranjagara, and I work as a senior ICT IAD, Africa Initiatives for Relief and Development. It works with UNHCR, and I'm in for masters in ICT.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see somebody called Sandra has raised. The name says Sandra, but the face I saw was a male face. So.
Sorry, doctor, I'm actually going to change my name. My name is Kenya Enoch, and I work with the Uganda Red Cross as an information technology officer.
Okay.
Nice meeting all of you.
Right. Nice to meet you too. Yes, Dennis.
Yes, good evening. This
Good
is
evening, Dennis.
Rogers. Hello.
Oh, it's Rogers. Yes, Rogers.
Yes, this is Dungu Rogers. I'm working as an ICT officer, Eastern region, but I'm based at Imbai Regional Referral Hospital. I'm a former student of Uganda Matters University.
Okay, okay. Did we meet?
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, Dennis, who is this?
Yes. This is Sept is my name.
Okay.
I work with Black Uganda as a regional IT officer for Soroti region. And I am here for ICT masters.
Okay. Okay. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I think let's have Dennis. He has had his hand up for some time. Yes, Dennis.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Dennis Rusat, ICT officer, Microsoft Uganda Limited. I'm here for Masters of Science in Information Systems.
Okay, okay. Next, I'm seeing Emmanuel Kasozi.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm Emmanuel Kasozi. I work with as an ICT technician. So I'm going to do masters in ICT.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome, Emma. Emma we worked with Emma for some time. And it's good he's here because he's the one in charge of e-learning. Yes, Clovis.
Good evening to you all. My name is Clovis Nyakahuma. I work with Mantra Technologies as a network and security consultant. I'll be doing a master's in ICT.
Okay, you're most welcome, Clovis. Then there is Kinyera.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Auditor with the Office of the Auditor General.
Ah.
Nice to meet you all. MSc IS.
Oh, you're most welcome. And Dennis Okello. Dennis, I think you're muted. You're still muted, Dennis.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Denis Okello. I am the network, I work as networks and security engineer in one of the government institutions, and I'm doing MICT.
Oh, you're most welcome. Can we have Kalule?
Good evening, members.
Good evening.
Hello. Yes, my name is Geoffrey Kalule, lecturing at YMCA Comprehensive Institute, Wandegea, pursuing masters in IS.
You're most welcome. Jude Luwaga. Thank you, Kalule.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, Jude.
I'm Jude Luwaga from Uganda Matters University.
You're most welcome, Jude. So Jude and Emma, those were one time I worked with them in the ICT department. So we're in good hands. Richard.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Richard Ndagijimana. I'm an IT officer at KCCA, Kampala Capital State Authority. Good to be at Uganda Matters University.
It's good to hear from you. It's good to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Milton.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Milton.
Hello.
Yes, Milton, we can hear you.
I'm called Mumbogwe Kakwa. I'm called Mumbogwe Kakwa Milton. I work with the Minister of Education and Sports as a Deputy Principal of District College Kichwamba in Kabarore.
Oh, okay. We are neighbors.
Yeah.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome, Milton. Kasozi, Nicholas.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Kasozi Nicholas. I work with Nicholas Hospital as the IT officer. I'm here for Masters in ICT.
Okay.
Nice meeting.
Nice to meet you. So you're a neighbor there at Nkozi. Most welcome. Margaret?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Margaret.
My name is Margaret Nambazira. I work with Baylor College of Medicine, and I work as an M&D officer. I am here to pursue a master's degree in information systems. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It's nice to see a lady. I thought I was alone. I was going to be alone in a sea. Sarah?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Sarah.
I'm Nasa Sarah from Uganda Matters University. I'm studying masters in ICT.
You're most welcome, Sarah. Pauline?
Hi, everyone. My name is Pauline. Bakoa. I'm working with UNHCR as the Database Management Associate. Nice to meet you and hope to see you soon.
Okay, good to meet you, Pauline. Vincent?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Vincent Atuhaire. I work with Uganda Telecom as the network and security officer. I'm here for a master's in ICT management, policy and architectural design.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome, Vincent. Cynthia Kabagambe.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cynthia Kabagambe. I support the Palliative Care Association of Uganda in ICT and data management. Good to meet you all.
Good to meet you, Cynthia. Well, I've also met Cynthia on several different occasions. Cynthia, you're most welcome. Okello Emmanuel.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Okello Emmanuel. I work with a health and nutrition officer. I'm doing IT. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome, Emmanuel. Sharon?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Okello. I work with ESCOM Uganda Limited in Jinja, and I'm pursuing a master's in ICT. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Have we heard from Alvin? Have we heard from Alvin? No?
Hello.
Yes, Alvin.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Alvin Aliu Michael, and I'm working with Sheba Technology Uganda Limited as a cash deposit machine consultant, and I'm here to pursue a master's degree in ICT.
Oh, you're most welcome, Alvin. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Eddie, have you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Sengendo Eddie. I'm an information scientist based in Uganda Management Institute. And I'm here for a master's in information systems. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Have we heard from Bukenya Enoch?
Doctor, I think you did.
Oh, yes,
Bukenya
yes.
Enoch, my name was
Before you were Sandra.
Yeah, I'm now Bukenya Enoch.
You're most welcome.
And I'm actually here for the MIS.
Okay, okay. Then there is Clement. I don't know if we've heard from Clement. Is Clement there? Okay, Kato, Kenneth.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am called Kenneth Kato, and I am a ballistics engineer with Pacific Architects and Engineers, which is actually a defense contractor. It's an American defense contractor, formerly in Iraq and in Syria. However, I'm now here doing IT management. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Simwe. Simwe, are you there? Asimwe? No? What about Faith? We have not heard from Faith. Jessie?
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, Faith.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I
evening.
am Sept Magala, an IT officer in Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, you're most welcome. Then we have Jesse.
Good evening, Doctor, and everyone.
Yes, Jesse.
My name is Rahimbia Jesse, and I'm a fiber field engineer for Soliton Telmec. I'm pursuing a master's degree in ICT.
Okay, you're most welcome.
Thank
you. I don't know if there's anyone who've left who has not introduced himself or herself.
I've just shipped in.
Oh, yes, please.
Francis.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, please. Yes, Francis.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Francis Namugera. I work with Medical Research Council, and I'm a data manager. So I'm a student of IS. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Francis. You're most welcome. I think we've met. Is there anyone we've left behind? No. Oh, there's.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Ogola.
Yes, Ogola Martin is my name. I work with the Bank of Africa and as a IT risk analyst.
Okay.
I mean, for masters in ICT.
Okay.
I'm glad to be in this class. Thank you.
Thank you. So I welcome you all, and I really appreciate the you choosing UMU, and specifically the course, the two main courses in the Faculty of Science, IS and ICT. And yeah, all of you have you have really differing backgrounds from just the introductions I'm getting from you. Some of you are not in the IT field, you're coming from other fields coming in, which is still good. Like I told you myself, I also transitioned from the field of development studies to computer science. And when you merge, when you bring in a different perspective, most of the time IT can tend to live outside of this world, outside of the real world. So it's also good when those who have a different perspective come in. So you're most welcome. I had the hard task of being your first lecturer as you start your program. So I have to impress, I imagine, but anyway, we try to do what we can. So my first question to each one of you I think for me probably would be what you remember about research previously, from your previous academic experience, and maybe for some of you even from your work experience. In I think the second class I taught, the second last previous class I taught, there was a student who was extremely good at quantitative research, really good. And he really gave us a lot of insights. So I just want to ask, just throw it out there to you. What is your experience of research what do you know about it? What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? Hello, any thoughts? Yes, Kalule.
Hello, doctor.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, according to me as a computer scientist, I think research, I think there must be a problem. There must be a problem. There must be a gap somewhere. Then you think of a solution. When you think of a solution, of course, you need to think of the methods you are supposed to use to come up with the results. So,
yeah.
As a scientist, I think you need to think of, you look at the problem, then you state the problem and think of how you are going to come with the answer, the solution.
Okay.
You generate.
Thank you, Kalule. Thank you so much. Have you heard what he said? He said there must be a problem, there must be a gap, then you think of a solution, and then you must have a method. Yeah. All these four that he has mentioned, they seem quite straightforward. They seem quite straightforward when we simply mention it like that. When we mention it like that, that's what it is definitely right, is most definitely right. Now the issue is on the practical side. Yeah, on the practical side of things, are we able to identify a problem? Are we able to, or a gap, as he calls it, a gap, the problem or the gap, identify the appropriate solution, then have a method to apply that solution. Justin is saying, I'm not hearing anything. Is that the same for everyone? Can you hear me?
Hearing you clearly.
We can hear you.
That's the problem.
Doctor, you're loud and clear.
Okay, Justin, maybe if you could look for a different angle where you're seated, where maybe it's the network. So the issue is then, can we identify that problem? And as you're saying that, immediately I thought about what I would like to give you to test your ability. Don't worry, I will not grade you for this, but to test your ability to identify a problem from a published article. I want to give you several articles. If you can identify a problem, what problem did the researchers identify? A problem is research. In research is not the same as a problem in everyday life. Yeah. A problem in research is not a problem in what we know as a problem in everyday life. What Kalule said is true, but Justin says maybe it's my volume. I'm putting it. I don't know. The rest say they can hear me, Justin, very well. Let me send her a message.
Yeah, for her, I think her phone, the kind of device she's using, some devices when you're on Zoom, their volume is really too low. I think it also depends at times the kind of device you're using.
Okay. Sorry, Justin, the rest can hear me. So there isn't much else I can do. So let's just get back. That's one of the challenges of online learning, but let's continue. So there is a big difference between a problem that we experience in everyday life and a research problem. The key word is research. Research problem. And if we talk about research, then the problem must have been identified by other researchers. Okay? So let me give you an example. During the COVID pandemic, and which okay, we're not necessarily in the same situation. Things have changed a little bit, but you remember it happened then, and it's still going on when the pandemic broke, and then the talk of vaccines came up, and the people who had then the talk that, oh, they were now rolling out vaccines and urging people to go ahead and get vaccinated. And I think even, for example, recently there was a talk about vaccinating school-going children, and reports started coming up on social media, or how in certain places children were dying or getting some kind of complications, so on and so forth. And even adults, when adults were being vaccinated, there were different stories and in social media and so on and so forth. Now, if you're reading on social media, it was one thing. If you talk to a researcher in the field of, let's say, viral infections, the information is quite different. Why? The one side is a problem. One side you have what we would call, let me use the religious term, the lay people. The rest of us who are not scientists in the field of viral infections and vaccines. We are getting our information from social media. Yeah, social media, which may or may not be true. Then on the other hand, you have the scientists who are in the labs, who are carrying out tests, who are carrying out surveys and so on and so forth. Their information is quite different. So a problem for a layperson, in quotes, in the field of viral infectious diseases and so on and so forth, is not the same as a problem for that researcher who is actually carrying out research from a viral in the labs on viral infections or infectious diseases and so on and so forth. I'll give you an example. When those stories came out, that when there was a rumor that government was going to force school-going children to be vaccinated, and all the stories came out that, or in Europe, some people were dying, children were dying or getting some kind of infections or otherwise, some kind of terrible side effects. So I have a sister who has a child, but she also has, so of course it was a concern, but she also has a friend who is one of the top scientists in infectious diseases, Uganda. Yeah. So those were the people who were highly involved during the pandemic. Those who were out doing the tests, and those are the people who are actually in the thick of things. So immediately she sent him some of the messages, and this gentleman sent back a response. And he said, no, there has been no study to indicate that there have been such adverse side effects as what is being perpetrated. So now you realize the problem that was being pointed out on social media was it was as a result of social media, should I say, gossip and rumor mongering. Yeah. I don't want to be that harsh. It's not necessarily gossip, but fears come up out of social media, fears. Let me not be that harsh. Fears, because all of us have them. I have them, all of us have them. Those social media fears. But the researcher, on the other hand, doesn't see that as a problem. Why? The researcher, he or she, is dealing with research problems. Maybe the current research problem for them would be long-term effectiveness of the vaccines. That could be one research problem. Why? Because we have seen that the vaccines may be effective for a certain period, but after some time you need a booster. So that could be a research problem. Yeah, coming up with a long-term vaccine for COVID-19. That could be that is an example of a research problem, because that is something that is a reality in the research of viral infections. So we must know what is the difference between a research problem and an everyday problem, problems that we find daily in our lives. So one of the first things I want to do is to give you articles I want to upload them on Moodle, and then you can read through them, and then that should be our first discussion next week on Friday, those particular articles, to see if we can identify what the research problem is, what was the solution. Now, the other thing, that's the other thing, the solution, yeah? That's the other thing I wanted us to talk about. As IT people, immediately we see a problem, we want to solve it. I'm sure all of you, because most of you are in the IT field, you immediately think, take an example, the network is down, go fix it. We need a new information system to do XYZ, or let's look for it, or let's build one, something like that. Those are the solutions we normally find, we normally experience as IT people. But when it comes to research, research is a little bit different. The solutions we normally think about are not the solutions that we find, are not the solutions that we find in research. And this is the second thing that I want you all to identify in these articles. I think I'll put about 3 or 4. I think I already have 3 of them. But what is identified as a solution? Okay. Kalule said there is a method. Okay, there is a method that comes with the solution. You must apply a method to be able to come up with your solution. So the solutions differ. They differ. But however, I also don't want to take you very far away from your field. One of the things that is expected is a tangible output. One of the things about research is output. So output is key. What output is expected in research, but more specifically, of course, what I must guide you on is what output is really expected in the Faculty of Science, so that you're not completely thrown out of research. There is research in general, and as I give you the articles, you'll actually find that what we normally imagine is an output for ICT, IS, or an IT person. We normally expect a system and other things, but you'll see some of the articles I'll give you, which are articles in the field of IS, ICT, computer science. You'll actually see it's not what we normally imagine. Okay? It's not what we normally imagine. So I'll give you those articles, published articles from journals of IS, ICT, and so on and so forth. So you just have a look at them and you'll see that it's quite different. Although also on a warning side, just to let you know that the faculty, the department itself also has its own ideas. So for the sake of not clashing heads, I will also guide you also on what others, what the faculty or the department really expects. Now, just seeing some questions. First question, aren't we going to have class tomorrow? Eddie, use that time to go through the articles so that immediately we start on Friday, we have an interactive class. It's extremely important that we have an interactive class, that I'm not just talking, because research itself is a very engaging process, I should say. It's a very, very engaging process. And we need to be active from the word go, extremely active, that we understand some of the most basic things. For example, identification of a problem, a research problem. These are things that you're going to really struggle with, really struggle with as you're doing your research. Not to discourage you, please, I'm not trying to tell you it's the most difficult thing to do. No, it's just taxing. It's a laborious process because you have to read a lot. One person one time told me when I was doing my research that doing research is about pulling something out of yourself. So so essentially what would be really good is for us to engage immediately. Then Vincent, your question is, we are not enrolled on Moodle. So what I'm going to do, Vincent, I still have the module in the Moodle, the research methods. I want to de-enroll the previous class, clean out the content, and then I'm going to send you the enrollment key today evening. Yeah? So you will, and you'll today evening or tomorrow morning, one of the two. Most likely tomorrow morning. I'll send it to you, and you can enroll and access the articles that I'm going to give you. Then next question, what kind of research are we supposed to produce at the end of the day? Eddie, thank you for that question. Number one, most important thing which we must understand, research is about contribution, okay? That's the first thing we must keep in mind, contribution. You're making a contribution to the research world, yeah? So first things first is making a contribution to the research world. Two, it must be to a specific field. So not just any contribution, but it must be to the field of IS or ICT. So we find the research problem from the fields of IS and ICT. Okay, that's where we find the research. So the most important thing, the first and most important thing is, let us understand what a research problem is. That's one. Two, can we then get into our fields and identify a research problem? That's the other thing. Many times, you find somebody, some people will start by saying, oh, at my workplace, I recognized ABCD, which is good. It's not bad. That's a starting point. You may have recognized something. I remember one time somebody gave me, and it's good I have two people who I had experience with, Emma and Jude. One time in one of the classes, somebody raised an issue, raised a research problem where he said he wanted, I think it was a group of people where they said they wanted to most of you are IT officers and so on and so forth. I'm sure you've had the experience of the company website constantly lacking up-to-date information. Yeah? The company website constantly lacking up-to-date information. And normally the people blamed are the ICT team. Yeah, usually the people blamed is the ICT team. And I'm sure as ICT people, you know that content is not your responsibility because you don't own it. It's owned by the different departments that are supposed to produce that content. And you know also as ICT professionals that you're not necessarily storytellers. So it's actually not your job. Your job is to create the structure. So their research was to study the governance structures that are necessary to ensure information flow. Yeah, information flow. So that one is very much, I would say, in the ICT side. Eddie, you had a question. You've had your hand raised for some time.
Yes, Professor, there's something I wanted to know.
Yes.
Hey, Professor, Dr. Sheba.
Yes, please.
Doctor, there's something I wanted to know.
Yes, please.
I asked about the kind of research that you're supposed to do. As in, I wanted to know, are we writing basic research, pure research, or these are research that deals with variables of different.
Okay.
The independent and the dependent. Or we are supposed to have an output like a project.
Okay. Thank you, Eddie, for that question. I'm sure for some of you, some of the things he's asking may be a little bit, some of the terms he's saying, like basic research, pure research, and so on and so forth. Don't worry about it. Those are simply technical terms. Now, Eddie, let me first state research of any kind, there must be an output. Research of any kind, there must be an output. Now, remember I said with this research in general, there's research what is, and I actually said I'm going to show you articles which are coming from the fields of IS, ICT, and you'll see what the output is. So it's not necessarily always that the output, what you're giving to the world, is necessarily an artifact. What you've used the word project. In research, we like to call that an artifact. Yeah. What Ed is asking, that for many people from the IT background, at the end of your research, you produced a system, some kind of IT solution. That's what most of you have done. Now, that is not bad, and I'm sure some of you who are doing IS will do it. Now, let's also rectify something. A system is not a research output, okay? A system is not a research output. It's new knowledge that is the research output, knowledge that is not yet known or not yet confirmed, okay? Knowledge that is not yet known or not yet confirmed, okay? Now, that is one thing. So if there is somebody who would like to build a system, please go ahead. And the department itself actually doesn't have a problem with somebody actually developing a system. But, for the sake of research, I would suggest if you are developing a system, go beyond the system, because now we're at master's level and we want to go beyond a system. Eddie, let me give you an example. One of the articles I'm going to give you is something called, it's called an action research project, where some people decided to implement a groupware application in an organizational setting to improve communication. And then they said at the end, the project failed, okay? So they have implemented a groupware software application with the intention of improving, but the project failed. And their output was why it failed, specifically that, and they said that all research before, as far as groupware was done in labs. But in this particular case, the newness of it, the method they decided to use was action research, where they put it in a live environment. And this live environment, things failed. And they pointed out the things in the context, the actual organization, the real life, things that exist that make or break a system. So that was their output. It wasn't necessarily the groupware application, but what existed within the context of application. That was the problem. So for those developing systems, I would say it's okay, go ahead and develop the system, but go beyond just developing a system. Eddie, I don't know if I've answered your question. That's one, talking about the project. But let me go further when I talked about an artifact. Let me just go a little bit further, Eddie, then you can ask another question. Let me talk about the artifact. Now, an artifact in research isn't just a system, especially for ICT, for the field of ICT and IS, specifically for ICT. I'll give you an example. For my research, I developed a mobile application, but again, the mobile application was not the issue. What I designed at the end was a model which guides an ICT4D designer on developing a sustainable mHealth application. Yeah, so that model was essentially saying what is of value and what is not of value in a rural context. So the artifact was my contribution. That artifact, yeah, was my contribution. So the artifact does not necessarily have to be a system. It can be a model, it can be a framework. You hear quite a bit about that. Also, the other thing you don't necessarily have to develop a model, a framework specifically for people in ICT. You can also verify a model or a framework. That means somebody else has developed a model or a framework for one context and you want to test it in the Ugandan context or in a context where it has never been used before, and see if it provides the solution that it's being proposed for. So I don't know if I've answered, Eddie, your question, and if I have even or made anyone else more confused.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, please.
Yes, there is okay. So I wouldn't call it a rumor, but I was told that at master's level we don't develop systems, but we we improve already existing systems in our research.
Okay. Now,
I don't know what you have to say about that.
Okay. Now I'll tell you what is expected in the department. Let me first tell you what research is in general. It's like I said, research is not about developing systems. A system is not research. It's an innovation, but it's not research. Okay, that's one. Two, there's also what I would say are the basic, what the department currently allows. There are those who want to just develop a system. There are those who want to do that. But for me, I would say, for me, as Sheba, as somebody who has done research and really appreciates it, I would say only do it if really you think, okay, I really don't have time. I just want to do this thing and finish. That's what I would say. But if you truly want to pick the best from research, go beyond developing a system. That's what, for me, I would say.
Okay.
That is what, for me, I would say. In actual sense, Eddie, if you developed a system, I think, for me, if I was on the panel, I wouldn't even ask you, show me the system. If it were me, I wouldn't even ask you, show me the system. Why? Your programming skills have already been proved. Yeah, you did your first degree and now it's about research. Research is about being an academic, bringing new knowledge. Yeah, bringing new, for me, that would be it. If you're developing a system, for what reason? Are you going to apply it somewhere and then test it? For me, that would be my biggest concern. If you are to talk to me as Sheba, that is what I would say to you. But of course, I'm not the entire department. So, yeah, I'm sure there will be a workshop where they tell you what is expected. Vincent.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, Vincent.
What if the system is solving, bringing a new solution to a field?
Thank you, Vincent, for that question. He's asked a very good question. What if the system is solving a problem? Now, you remember the scenario I gave you, the article I gave you, you read it. It's about action research, where they talked about groupware application. Yeah, a groupware application. Groupware application, for example, WhatsApp can be used as a groupware application. Yeah, there are so many of them. If you read the article itself, just go through, when I put it up, just read this article. It said that there was so much talk about how these groupware applications improve communication for especially top management within an organization. So I'll just give you an example. I am part of a board of directors for a local tea factory here in Kienjojo. Now, they created a WhatsApp group where we are all part of it. And there are some things, for example, management of the factory would like a quick decision without necessarily calling for a board meeting. For example, the general manager can decide to just post that, like, okay, I really need to get more farmers on board. Is it okay if I increase the price to this amount because all other factories have reached there? Now, such a situation would need a board meeting coming up, sitting, and then we discuss it. But because it's a quick decision, because he needs to quickly get in farmers because it's the rainy season and now it's an opportunity to increase the volumes of the factory, he can send such a message and we can all agree on that yes, in principle, let's agree on it. And then maybe when we meet, we can agree, formally agree to it, something like that. Now you see that there was WhatsApp improving communication, yeah, and quickly that this general manager can quickly make that decision. Now, Vincent, the issue is, I'm just giving you one example, but somebody has not actually gone out to research to find out if this has happened for all other, should I say, all other top management that are using WhatsApp. If necessarily this has been the solution. That has not, no one has done that research. I'm just giving you one example. So Vincent, in other words, what I'm saying is IT, there's always systems being brought up with a claim that they are going to do ABCD. They are going to do, they are going to improve the situation on this. They are going to do XYZ, but that doesn't actually happen. And sometimes it's better to find out why. In a live environment, you can first do the tests in a laboratory, even an we shall also see in methods we have laboratory experiments. That's a method which you can try to prove if something works or does not work. And then you can also do a live one, like for example, where someone did an action research with groupware. So Vincent, creating the system itself is not the research contribution. It is actually implementing it and seeing if it does actually do what it is supposed to do. And if it doesn't, function-wise, it may work, but you may find certain underlying issues within a given context. So I would urge you to read that article and see what the authors, what they brought forward, the new knowledge they brought forward. It wasn't the groupware application, but what they found within the live environment. Ogola?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Maybe mine is really asking, maybe I don't know if this was discussed earlier before I chipped in, I joined the call. But from what I've been, my discussion with people that have done masters, research is really the core, of the whole program.
Yes, that is very true.
Without research, really, you can't go through.
Yes.
So we are having this as the first lesson today.
Yes.
And yet, this is something we are. The output is maybe probably the output of this research is at the end of the program.
Exactly.
So maybe my question is this going to be, is it an ongoing kind of program up to the end, or I'm a bit confused there.
I know.
Is this a one-off? Then maybe at what point are we to choose research topics, that kind of thing?
Okay.
I'm really seeking that kind of guidance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ogola. That's a good question. I think that is it is a very valid concern. Now, let me first state that I'm not very sure about the program, what the program for research is. But however, let me state this. It is starting this module at the beginning. This is not an ongoing process. That one for sure I know. But I do know that they do arrange certain research workshops where you have discussions with other lecturers. I'm aware that happens. How regular that is, I don't think that's very regular, because so far I've only been to about 2 or 3. But let me go ahead, also maybe encourage you. First things first, start thinking about your research now. Okay? Start thinking about your research now. It takes some time. For some people, things are quick. You can be lucky, but start thinking about your research now, specifically your research problem. Research problem. Start thinking about it now and begin to formulate it now. It takes some time to think up. For some people, it takes some time. For some people, it's quick. Everybody has their different calendar. But what I would advise is start thinking about it now. Start discussing it with other lecturers, with your colleagues now. The more you discuss it, by the time they're asking for your proposal, it would be a good idea that you have something ready that is concrete, that you know that immediately after I've selected my research problem, it is a valid research problem. The proposed solution is a valid research output, and the proposed method is an appropriate method, so that immediately you start implementation of your research. Okay, that is for me what I would say, just to maybe to guide you on the fear that this is quite early. For sure, it is early. That is also a little bit of concern I've thought about, but it's here anyway. We can't really change much. Ogola, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, that is fine, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Eddie, you have another question?
To add on, okay, actually there was something that Vincent put up. Hello?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Yes, he talked about developing systems as a solution to the problem. And you said that designing system may not necessarily be the solution to the problem, but we identify a problem while doing research, and then we find solutions. At some point, it can work as a solution. If you are to give an example, personally, I developed a system at my undergraduate level to solve a particular problem. It was to do with the institutional repository. It was an institutional repository for a certain institution. There was a problem, and then it was solved by developing a system. What most people say is that system development mostly works at undergraduate level. There are solutions, but works at undergraduate level. And when you come at master's level, you are expected, especially people who are doing information systems, they are expected to identify a problem within an existing system. And then you solve that particular problem. Could be by, okay, for instance, we are going to be studying using Moodle. I don't know, I've never used Moodle before, but I know what it is. You could find that some institutions using Moodle to upload just PDF files to students and documents for students to download and read. And then you identify that there is a problem that students download these papers, but they don't understand what they are reading. Then with the application of theories or models like the technology acceptance, you study about the use of a technology like podcasting to improve the use of that system. And I believe that would be a solution to that problem.
Now, yes. Okay, so you're saying you okay. One, you gave an example of a solution which you did at undergraduate level, where there was a problem, there was a need for a repository system which you developed, yeah.
Yes.
And you believe now that solved the problem. Then two, now you've given another example of at master's level where you're improving an existing system. So you've given an example of Moodle, where you can improve content understanding by the learners, where you add also podcasts together with the PDFs. Okay. Now it comes back to something I mentioned when Kalule talked about a problem. There's a big difference between a problem in the real world and a research problem. Yeah? A problem in the real world and a research problem. And this is something that I'm really going to emphasize, because it is extremely important you understand the difference between a research problem and a problem in the real world. What, Eddie, you're talking about are problems in the real world. An institution needed a repository and you developed one. Moodle improving the teaching and learning process by adding podcasts together with. Those are real world problems, but they are not research problems. For a problem to be a research problem, it must have been identified from a research community. And this, Eddie and everyone else, is going to be extremely important. For a research problem to be a research problem, it must have been identified from a research community. So take an example for the case of the repository. If you had read a number of published articles that were saying there's a need for an online repository system, but there's no such system that has been developed, and there is a call by all these researchers that can someone develop, then you would say that is a research problem. Published articles, this would be published articles. Okay? This should be published articles. Now, let me just also state, many times, sometimes we notice problems within our workplaces. Those are localized problems. Okay, those are localized problems, but they are not research problems. One can say, after recognizing something within their workplace, they say, let me go and read about it elsewhere. Let me read about what is being said by other researchers concerning this issue. This particular issue, what are they saying? Now, I'll give you the example. For example, the example you've given us of Moodle and lecturers just uploading PDFs. And then you think about, what about use of podcasts? Then you say, let me go and read about if anyone has published anything on using podcasts together with written PDFs in online learning. What are they saying about it? And then you go ahead and read about it. And then maybe in the articles you find several researchers saying a number of it has been implemented in several places, but it hasn't been implemented in a live classroom, in an actual classroom context. And then you'll say, okay, let me try it and then see the results. Yeah, see the results. Does it actually improve teaching and learning? Does it improve does it improve understanding, the cognitive, whatever it is the teachers want to use? You implement it and then you say, I want to answer this question. And then you report back to that research community. Eddie, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Partly.
Okay. Okay, the key point here, Eddie, is there is a research problem in a localized setting, and then there's a research problem that has been identified by a research community. That is where you say, I have actually made a contribution to the research world. Because these particular researchers were saying they have tried it, but they actually haven't seen the results. Maybe they've tried it in a laboratory experiment. All these other the articles that I've talked about it, that have actually implemented, but they haven't tried it in a live environment. So the point is, if let us say, you say that you have seen in a situation of using Moodle, but you want to use podcasts, but you can't say it is a contribution to research because haven't other people tried it? So it's not new knowledge, hasn't it? For example, I have a friend who did her master's degree in, I think it was in IS. Most likely this was about 2010, 2008. And she did it purely online with a university in UK. Now, and she was doing ISA, there were practical elements, there were elements of programming and so on and so forth. Now, imagine the university in which she has done it with, and I remember she was telling me about the different technologies that were available to them. Don't you think they used podcasts? They must have. So what's new about just applying podcasts in terms of research? It may be new to UMU or to another university in Uganda, but it's not new elsewhere. It's not new knowledge. Eddie, I don't know if you've got my point. Eddie, you're muted, so I can't hear. I don't know if you.
I'm saying that at this level of masters, are we allowed to create new knowledge?
All research is supposed to create new knowledge. All research.
Because what the research we are going to be writing is basically to deal with case studies. You identify a problem in an organization and you find a possible solution to that particular problem. If it is a system, if the system they have needs improvement somewhere, you work on that. Of which I think it's supposed to be purely qualitative, even not going to the field and collecting data from a big population, like the communities. But when you talk of a community, identifying a problem that a research problem within a community, isn't this so quantitative and for social scientists?
Okay, Eddie, when I say research community, I said research community. Yeah? When I say research community, I mean published articles.
Okay.
On that particular subject. That's what I mean by research community. So in other words, one of the most taxing things you're going to do is read, and read. To see the area you want to research on, the area you're looking at, what has been done and what has not been done. Because all published articles point out what has not been done. Yes, Eddie?
Isn't that some kind of literature review?
Exactly. Again, I will point out the articles I'm going to give you actually point out where the authors, where they identified the gap. Okay? Where they identified the gap. So those articles will point out. So when we talk about research community, we're not talking about a rural, like for example, for me, I researched on a rural community. Yeah, it was specifically a parish in Nkozi area, in the Nkozi sub county. So
social science.
Yeah, and that was I actually used actually Eddie, some of the things that we imagine as social science. IT sits within a society, and one of the things, if you're going to implement any system within a social community, a social context, then you must bring in some social element. Yeah, you must bring in that that social element. Now, for example, one of the articles I'm going to give you, the one on the groupware application, they used action research. Now you'd imagine an IT research. Why are they using action research? Because they had to find out what is it that would affect the ability for this groupware application to actually improve communication. So they needed to observe the context itself, the people. Yeah. So I'll just give you also another example. My research was on mHealth, applying an mHealth application that was supposed to be used by a group of VHTs, village health teams. These are just ordinary community members in a rural context who give basic primary health care to community members. And this application was brought in by government, and these VHTs were supposed to, on a weekly, it first started weekly, I think now it's monthly, they're supposed to send reports using SMS. Yeah, just reports on how many cases of malaria they've had, how many cases of diarrhea, cases of pneumonia, their drug stocks, because the government Ministry of Health gave them drugs which they were supposed to distribute to whoever came who was sick. So the drug stocks, they're also supposed to send those reports. Now, when we implemented, it seems quite simple, yeah? Quite simple. But now, when we implemented, one of the things immediately we observed is some people have never used SMS in the village. Never used it. I remember one of the first things, an old man raised his hand during what I used purely qualitative research, and I used ethnography, which is very a very qualitative method. So I stayed with the community for some good time. So in one of the workshops, the old man raised his hand and said, "Madam, me the only thing I know how to use with the phone is to make a call and to receive a call. That's it." So now you realize, as ICT, if those who develop applications for rural users, they have no idea what kind of a user the rural person is, what kind of mobile phone user they are. No idea whatsoever. But yet, the user is part of the system, not so?
Yes.
Aha. So now, if it hadn't been for that research, that information would never have come out. It was just about developing an application and leaving it at that.
The application was developed without requirement analysis.
Even if you do a requirements analysis, but unless you're seated with the users, unless you actually implement it, that's when you find out. Yeah. So the application, you see, the application is not, it's not research, but the new knowledge of understanding. Now, let me also give you the other issue, why I picked the method I did. When I did the literature review, yeah, when I went to the research community of ICT4D, okay, The thing that was pointed out by every single researcher was that ICT4D designers do not understand a developing context. That was the key thing that they raised all the entire the research community of ICT4D. They kept saying ICT4D designers do not understand a developing context. And until they do, they will continuously develop unsustainable applications. As much as they work, they can solve the problem, but in reality, when you put them in the context, they don't work. So in other words, I got that problem. My point was not the application. Developing the application was not the point. The point was trying to get ICT4D designers to understand what a developing rural context is. So one of the variables I pointed out were the users, who the users are. So that when another ICT4D designer is developing an application, they know who the rural user is. Eddie, have you got my point between a research problem and a problem in the real world? The one who developed that mobile application was developing because Ministry of Health was saying they need timely reports. Yeah, they developed it. But they were getting, who are the users? This was just another ICT4D application that was going to collapse. Now, Eddie, have you understood what the research problem? Yes. So the research community, yeah.
So that is now my question is, are we going to be identifying problems from the articles?
Exactly. You may first see the problem from maybe your workplace, but go read about it outside the workplace. What have others done about it? And where and what are they saying has not been done? Because every published article will always point out what has not been done.
Doctor.
Yes.
I thought when writing, let's say, a problem statement or problem of the statement, as some people call it, you write the broader context of the problem based on literature. Then you show the actual problem. That what is really happening, what is the problem you're intending to solve, and then what you're going to do, isn't it? Yes, we write the problem, especially that first part of it, based on literature. But again, you are supposed to show the problem that exists.
Now, what
in
you're
that particular case.
now what you're pointing out is, I think you're coming from your undergraduate position, where normally when you talked about the problem, you actually talked about the case study, what you've observed in the case study. Okay? The case study is a method. The case study area is just the place where you're going to study the problem or study the proposed solution. But the problem should exist outside. So normally at undergraduate level, we start by seeing, you can also still see it even now, you may see a problem within your workplace, but get out of that workplace and look for that problem in literature. What has been done about it? What research has been done about it? You gave an example of e-learning Moodle and using PDFs. And then maybe people have said just uploading the PDFs is not enough. And then you think of, okay, what if I add podcasts? Now, before you start thinking of podcast as a solution, read about what e-learning researchers have talked about combining different multimedia multimedia content. What did they say about it? What research has been done about it? And where are they saying is the gap? Okay. Where are they saying is the gap? In other words, Eddie, what I'm trying to tell you is research is different from being a researcher is different from being an IT professional. IT professionals, our minds are geared to finding IT solutions. But this time we're finding research solutions. And which is normally knowledge. And most of the time we want to say, oh, this thing works. No. Research is about saying, this thing actually doesn't work. It's actually coming out even to say this thing doesn't work. And that is research. You'll get your distinction in your project just because you have said this thing actually doesn't work. It has been proved in this case study, that case study, that case study. It doesn't work. Yeah. So research is not about getting a tick that I've found a solution which works 100%. No, actually research brings out more problems. Proper research brings out more problems. Eddie, I don't know if I've answered your question. Eddie has really monopolized this discussion. Eh? Let's hear from others. Kizito, let's hear from you.
Thank you so much, Madam
But it's a good
Doctor.
discussion, Eddie. Thank you.
Actually, Eddie has exhausted all our questions. At some point, the questions are organized. I find that it is coming out. Some came out as Eddie was engaging.
Yes.
Yeah. But actually, my initial point was that before, I know I've got some light now, but because it has now like 10 minutes since I raised the hand.
Yes, yes.
My main issue was that during our orientation, the Vice Chancellor talked about plagiarism.
Yes.
So I want to know, because this is my first, actually, you know, I graduated in almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
So the brain is now even like, it's just coming back to school life. You know?
I know.
So contributing research solutions are contributing to already existing systems. The output must contribute to an already existing system. At what point can the plagiarism board can't find me a what? Because now when you're doing research, a culprit. Because now literature reviews in already existing published articles, those things. Maybe you'll throw more light on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kizito, that's a very, very good question. Eddie, you have a burning question in relation to that?
Yes. To respond to Kizito, Mr. Kizito, you're supposed to sit down and paraphrase, not copy and paste. When you copy and paste, then you will be, that's when plagiarism can get you. Otherwise, when you sit down, you paraphrase each and everything, plagiarism will not catch you. Now, Doctor.
Yes.
You emphasize the point that was raised by Ogola about thinking about our research early enough. You said
start
we should
thinking about it now.
But there is a very serious problem with thinking about all these things early enough. You can think about some, you know, research is disappointing. You can start writing something today, you thinking that you're doing the right thing, and then tomorrow your supervisor tells you what you've been doing is wrong, yet you've wasted a lot of time, and then you end up paralyzed. Because you see, I'm very sure that we are going to be writing research, but we are going to be writing IT-related studies. And people, very many people do no research of variables. How does this affect this? How does this influence this? But I don't know if it is what Uganda Matters accepts. But I think you can write your research, you end up being bounced.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Eddie. Now, Kalule, let me first come to you on the issue of plagiarism. What Eddie said is right. When we talk about plagiarism, it's about written, what is written, what you have written. So take an example. If I found an article, let's say on ICT4D, and it has a whole paragraph on sustainability, and I simply copy that whole paragraph and paste it in my work, and I don't acknowledge where I got it from. I don't acknowledge it at all. That is plagiarism. Okay? That's what plagiarism means. So, Kalule, I hope we have answered. Was it Kizito? Was it Kalule or Kizito who asked that question? It was Kizito. It was Kizito. Yeah, it was Kizito who asked. I don't know if I've answered your question. So, let's Kizito. Yeah, this basically basically goes back to the issue of systems. When we assume a system is research, no, a system is just an innovation. It's not new knowledge that is being brought forward. It's just an innovation. Okay. Kalule, do you have? Eddie asked about. First of all, the time frame you can start, and then things go wire. Eddie, first things first. Eddie, first things first. The research, it's the process of coming up with your research problem. It's a process. Sorry, there is some echo back.
Doctor, I think some people can mute and leave only you talking.
Kalule, can you mute? Others, can you mute?
Vincent, Eddie, Vincent, Maweje, please mute.
Thank you. Now, Eddie, the process of coming up with your proposal, it's a process. You start with a concept paper, you go to a proposal, and I believe the concept paper actually starts at the end of this module. It's not the final concept paper, but it's the beginning. For me as a lecturer, I'll be looking for the basics, that you have identified a research problem from a research community, that you have identified, you're proposing a solution or an objective. You have an objective you want to come up with, you want to tackle, and then you have an appropriate research method to implement your proposed solution. I'll be looking for the basics, but this concept paper develops into a proposal. Okay? Now, I don't know how soon you'll be given a supervisor to develop this concept paper. I don't know how soon, but you start working with your supervisor to develop it into a proposal, and you go chapter by chapter. So Eddie, it's not a lonely journey where you work, you write your 3 chapters, which are a proposal, and then boom, you give to a supervisor and they tell you, no, it's wrong, go back and redo. Yeah, it's a journey. Eddie, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes.
Okay. Next is Kalule. You had a question?
Yes, doctor. Thank you so much, doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you so much. But we request kindly, Eddie, you have consumed all the time for all the guys. Please, Eddie, allow others to ask. They have a lot to ask. Thank you. Doctor, I have 2 or 3 questions I would like to know concerning research.
Yes.
Of course, nothing big we are going to do because a lot has been done all over the world. Only that we need to identify the problem, what has not been done well, then we improve, or maybe we do it better.
Yes.
I think that is what you wanted to
Yes.
mean.
Yeah.
Yes, which is so good.
Mm.
Now, as IET, I would like to know if I identify a problem, for example, in Kampala, there are very many potholes in Kampala. I come up with a model to solve that problem because I know many have already seen that and have already written a lot on it. I come up with a model of solving that problem. Yet, I'm sure it is not connected to IET. So will I have solved the puzzle of research, or we need to think within the circles of IT?
IT, okay. Now the reason
Thank
why,
you.
Thank you, Kalule. Thank you for that question. The reason why I was giving examples of a system and models and so on and so forth. Normally you find the issues of models and so on and so forth with ICT students. Yeah, not the IS, but ICT, because ICT students are looking at ICT governance. That's where their research is geared towards. I don't know if there are ICT students here, because I think, like, for example, Eddie, who has monopolized the discussion, must be an IS student, but
yes.
Yeah, really your IS.
Yes.
But we have some ICT students, and normally when it comes to ICT governance, we're talking about management of ICT. So this is where you hear people talking about strategies, people talking about architectures, ICT architectures, and so on and so forth. So that's more in the area of ICT governance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, doctor. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Doctor.
Yes. Next is
yes.
Is it Maweje next? Oh, Eddie, you've taken up a lot. It's Maweje next.
No, just a small one.
Yes.
Yes. Kale mentioned about carrying out research from, let's say, remote area. And I'm wondering if I carry out my research and this research needs to be funded, does the university fund?
No. No, absolutely no.
So Eddie, you're looking for funders.
Okay. Who was next? Was it Maweje?
There is Kato.
Kato?
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes.
Doctor.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your brilliant submissions. I just wanted you to expound on where you said that sometimes it's not that the research that you have to hand in is supposed to be like, okay, everything works out well. That you can also prove that, okay, you have researched and you've realized, you've discovered that this particular, let's say, a tool or where your research is best does not work. It actually can't be solved yet. And then you prove that. I just wanted you to please expound on that. And then the next question is, if in your proposal, from the concept paper, then transit to the proposal, how many chapters minimum are allowed for your proposal or research?
Okay. So let me start with the first question, which is reporting and giving a negative result. So remember, research is scientific. You're carrying out scientific. You're going through a scientific process. So I gave you an example, one of the articles that I'm going to give you, which was looking at groupware application using action research. So let me just give you what was their research problem. They started from the background. Their background discussion was that IT solutions are seen to bring about efficiency within organizations. Any IT solution, be it a report management system or whatever it is, a tracking system, whatever it is, it's supposed to bring about some level of efficiency in any given organizational context. So now, in terms of groupware, the whole point of what was being pushed forward is that these groupware applications can improve communication at management level, and therefore improve efficiency, decision making and efficiency. So now that was the idea being pushed forward. Yeah. Now they said, however, this has not been proved that it can actually work. Okay, they said all the research, this is where they identified the research problem. They said all the research that had been done before, as far as groupware applications, was done in using laboratory experiments, yeah, or experimental laboratory research method. This is where the researcher gets the application and gets a number of people within a controlled environment and gets them to use the application. Now, these people argued that this does not give reality, does not give you results from the real world. In the laboratory experiment, it will work because functionally the things work, but when they put it in a live environment. So what did they do? They picked an actual organization, applied the application, and used action research to study the context. Yeah. So action research is when the people applying the researcher actually gets participants, they work with them as they're applying, and they observe what is happening. And what were the results? The project actually failed. Okay? The project actually failed. And they came, and that's actually the title of the article. When you see it, that's that it actually failed. And what was it they reported back? That there are underlying organizational forces that will affect the functionality or the objective of this application. So they pointed them out. For example, they said the IT department had not been included in the application. So what did the IT department do? They refused to support the application. They also had other issues, other organizational issues. They raised them out. So in other words, Maweje, what we're saying is this is what I'm pointing out, that negative result is a result worthy of reporting, because all other research had been in a controlled environment. Now they're putting it in an uncontrolled environment. What happens? I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, doctor.
Thank you. Kenneth, question.
Yes, good evening, doctor.
Good evening, how are you?
Fine. Now, you've been talking quite a lot. And well, from what I have got, when we're looking at this research here, you know, most of us are coming from IT backgrounds.
Yes.
Whereby you look at a problem and then you devise a solution for it, and then one way or the other, the solution will work for the problem. But from what I have seen is that on top of looking at this solution here, we need to go more and look at something maybe that somebody has not seen yet.
Yes.
And dig deep into that topic there.
Yes.
From the discussion I've had here with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, you've been talking a lot about research groups. Can you maybe first hint on what a research group is? Maybe you can give us an example.
Or rather,
and then also another thing is...
Oh, you mean research communities?
Yeah, research community. Yes, research community.
Yeah.
And then another thing is, you know, if we're going to go outside there and do our research, is it mandatory that we have to first go and compare what we're doing with whatever is inside those research communities? Maybe you can also give us the guidelines on that and how we can do it.
Okay.
And then also, lastly, you know, at this master's level, I think the biggest challenge will be this issue of research. So, as newcomers in this field, we are going to need some assistance And I don't know how far the department is going to be there to help us and make sure that by the time we're coming to present our work, we are not bounced like the way this gentleman said here, Eddie said. Because sincerely speaking, it is frustrating to put in all this effort. And you know, very many people here are quite busy. They also have other engagements.
Yes.
I think it would help a lot if maybe we get like support beyond the 5 weeks of this module here.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. First, let me first go to Maweje. I think he has reminded me, he asked a question. How many chapters is the proposal? Okay, first of all, we start with a concept paper, which is basically going to be the last thing you submit for this module, a concept paper. So a concept paper could be about, like it says, a concept paper, you're talking about the idea of your research. Then we have the proposal. The proposal expounds on the concept paper. So the proposal has 3 chapters. Yeah. So your chapter, most likely your concept paper becomes your chapter 1, but a little bit more elaborate. So the chapter 1 is basically talking about your research problem, your proposed solution, or the objective of your research, and slightly hint on the methodology. Yeah. Then you have your chapter 2. Your chapter 2 is normally your literature review. Then you have your 3rd chapter, which is the methodology. That's the proposal. Yeah. Maweje is asking what constitutes a concept paper. We shall discuss that as we go along. So let me go to Kenneth. Kenneth, let me just try to remember what the questions you asked. Let me start from the last one, which was, will there be time? Now, in theory, there should be time. In theory, there should be time. Normally, I think when you're at concept paper, you're given a supervisor. When you present your concept paper, then you start working towards a proposal together with your supervisor. If you work with your supervisor from the get-go, hoping that he or she is not busy and also you're not busy, you can come up with something understandable for the proposal defense. Yeah? So you work together from concept to proposal. You should, in the ideal world. But of course, in the real world, things happen. But the reality is that from concept paper to proposal, you should have a supervisor working with you. You should have been assigned a supervisor so that by the time you present your proposal, before actually doing the field research, whatever the field research is, someone was saying that going out to research in the community, talking to 100 participants, no, that's not always the case. You can do qualitative research quite comfortably. It doesn't have to be quantitative. Actually, I've never seen any quantitative research in this faculty. Never. I've never seen it. So yeah. One, you should have a supervisor. Hopefully, it's a good working relationship. Hopefully, but things happen. There are those who are really in touch. Supervisor, there are those who are quite busy. But let's hope for the best, Kenneth. Kenneth, you talked about you are saying research groups. It's research communities. What do we mean by research communities? Now, Eddie gave an example of Moodle. What if we use podcasts? Now, Moodle is in the category of e-learning. It's an e-learning system. Now, there are researchers, people who are actively involved in e-learning, and they are publishing. Yeah? So if, let's say, somebody wants to do something on Moodle, then they should go and start looking for articles that have been published on e-learning and maybe specifically using multiple medias of communication. There is in teaching and learning, we have texts, we have audios, visuals, and audio visuals, or what we call multimedia. Yeah. So there's research going on. There are people who are publishing in that area. Yeah. So that is a research community. When I was doing my research, because it was in the field of ICT4D and mHealth, I looked for articles published on mHealth sustainability and development and ICT4D. That is that research community. That's what I'm referring to. So when you go to Google Scholar or you use the library e-resources, you're looking for articles on that particular subject area. Kenneth, I hope I've answered your question. I don't know if there was another one.
You've answered the question, Doctor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Vincent.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Just on what you have talked about. Mine is about the area, the coverage, should I say? For example, when you talk about your research, if the problem the research you did was the problem global, or the problem was specific to the ICT for development community in Uganda?
It was specific to the researchers in the field of ICT4D.
In Uganda?
No,
not countrywide, global.
Global, because researchers come from different contexts. Researchers,
yes.
When you're looking for articles, you look for maybe articles on ICT4D or ML. So I didn't look for Uganda. I looked for, although my research reported findings for Uganda. Yeah. Now, here is another interesting thing, Vincent, I can also tell you. There was somebody in the class of, I think this was one of the pioneer classes of ICT, the MSc ICT class. So this particular student, he was involved with UNICEF. And I actually, one of the mHealth application I studied was from mHealth, mTrack. UNICEF was one of the funders, but this particular one, UNICEF was involved in getting in implementing a community application, mobile application. Okay, a community mobile application. So again, it was an IT implementation. Yeah, this was an IT implementation. They were trying to implement this community application to support their work, healthcare work within rural communities. Now, what was the purpose of his research? What was he trying to do? He had discovered that there was also a community application implemented in South Africa. Now, as an output of that application, output of that research, that project, they developed a framework to support or to sustain the application, that the application can go on beyond the donor. So what was his research about? Because these people in South Africa had developed this framework in the unique context of South Africa. Now, South Africa is different from Uganda. It's a different context. What did he do? He decided to get that framework. His objective was to validate that framework. Are the same variables that were discovered in South Africa also evident in Uganda? That was the question he was asking. As far as sustainably maintaining a community mobile application, was it possible for this same application, the same variables evident in Uganda? So, in other words, was it Vincent who asked the question? I think so.
Yes.
In other words, Vincent, you can also find a gap in terms of context. Okay. Your research gap can say, this thing has been implemented in context A, B, C, D, but has never been implemented in context Y. Which context Y is different. So whereas maybe it was successful in this other context or failed in this other context, let me apply it in this context and see if it will if it will exhibit the same variables, the same success variables or the same failure variables.
Okay, that is understood, Doctor. Now,
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted also to understand, you mentioned that if there is a working solution and you find out a problem and your research is about that problem, you could even get a distinction. Now, do you still go ahead and propose a solution for that problem, or you're good enough with pointing out the problem?
Now you point out the problem and then you point out other areas other researchers need to look at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is why in published research, that's where we get our research problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, Eddie, this is your final question. Yes,
About
Eddie.
three.
Mm.
Now, and one was some kind of a confusion about you mentioning the research community. Yes, I understood what you were meaning by the saying research community, but there is what they call a community of practice and a community of interest. So whenever you mention and the community of interest, and every time you mention an interest, and every time you talk about the research community, this is what comes into my mind. Community of interest and the community of practice. Then two is I'm sure at the end of the day we're supposed to be assessed. And I wanted to know your mode of assessment.
Yes, I think I already gave the hint on the mode of assessment. It's a concept paper. So it's a take home that you submit.
Coursework.
Yeah, but coursework,
for
coursework, there will be some group work and then an individual. Most likely the individual will be a quiz. Yeah, most likely. Okay, so now you talk about the
last one, Doctor, is the last one is every time these articles you're referring us to, they are most of the time it is not they are not academic papers, they are scholarly articles, scholarly publications, which I think they are totally different from the way academic papers are presented.
Now, okay. Now, okay, the articles I want to give you, they are not, like you said, they are not academic, but one of the things they will point out, the scholarly articles, one of the things they will point out is how research problems are identified. Yeah? How research problems are identified, so that we immediately get into our heads what these research problems are. These articles that have been printed, they came from an academic writing. Yeah, they came from an academic writing. For example, you'll have your dissertation from your, if your dissertation has been real research, you can develop a paper to publish from it. So of course, the way it is written is not the same way as the academic paper has been written. But what I wanted to point out are the research problems, to show you what research problems are. That is the objective, to show you what research problems are. And that's one of the key points. You had said something else. What was the other question? I don't know if I've answered all. Yes, the research community and the communities of interest and community of practitioners.
Community of interest and community of practice.
Okay. Now, normally we talk about when we're writing our research. If you've written a research, there's always the justification of the research, significance of the research. And normally here we're talking about why this research is important. And of course, there's the adding of new knowledge. And then normally we talk about the people who will benefit. Those are the communities of interest and communities of practitioners. A community of researchers are those who have published research work in that area. Those who have published. Now, let me give you an example. Like I said here, we are in that. I'm in the area where I am. This is one of the areas of tea growing in Uganda, and we have a number of tea factories here. I remember many years ago when my late father was still alive, he was heavily involved in the tea industry. So I remember he talked to me because I was working in a university. He said that one of the things we are looking for in the tea factory is an affordable means of generating heat, because the green leaf that is brought to a factory must be processed using heat. And most of the time, what the factories here in Uganda use is firewood, which is most of the time the eucalyptus tree. So, but number one, it's not sustainable because you're cutting down trees, and that source of fuel is quite expensive. So of course they also using electricity is also quite expensive. So he was telling me, as someone in the academic field, maybe to pass on to the Faculty of Agriculture, is we are looking for an alternative means, of fuel apart from using firewood and using electricity. That was a community of interest. Okay. Now there's also a community, I'm sure, in the tea industry. In the research world, there are those who are researching on alternative means of fuel for tea industries. I'm sure they are there. Yeah. Just like we have in the IT field, people coming up with IT solutions. There are also those ones. Now, those ones who are looking for alternative sources of fuel, that is the community of researchers. But then you have the community of practitioners, the tea factories. You have the community of those interested, those who are interested in the environment, keeping the environment, conserving, and so on and so forth. So when you're writing your research, those would be the justification and significance of your research. Yeah, those to whom they will benefit. But the research community are those who are actively involved in the research and are publishing what is currently going on. I hope I've answered your question, Eddie. Vincent, do we have a question? And if there's another question, it should really come from the ladies. We haven't had anything from the ladies. Vincent? Vincent, do you have a question?
No question, Doctor. Sorry, I had moved off.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? The ladies, I haven't had anything from you. Nothing from the ladies? Okay. Someone is saying the whole research methodology has been summarized in one lecture. So, Mawecha, now I will not forget about Moodle. I'll most likely finish everything tomorrow morning and pass on the information to you. Yes, Eddie.
Doctor, this, I think some of us are not yet registered on Moodle.
Yes, like I said.
I think males would work with it.
No, Moodle is what we must use. It's the official platform we are using, and I'm sure you're offending Emma Kasozi, who is our e-learning administrator in part of this class.
For only this one.
You're seriously offending Emma. Emma should speak up for Moodle. No, but don't worry. Don't worry. I'm going to, like I said, the module is already there. I just need to clean it up because I had a class before. I just finished marking and submitted the marks. So I just want to clean it up By tomorrow morning, I should send you. I should send you the details. And Emma is saying, I think you want to be taken through it. Eh? I think that's a good one. Emma, should that be the first thing we do when we meet?
Yes, I think
Okay. Thank you, Emma. I think that's the first thing we shall do.
I've already created the accounts ready.
Oh, thank you, Emma. Thank you. So it's one of the advantages of having ICT as part of our class. Eh? So do they all have email addresses, Emma?
Yes.
No. Eddie,
We
you're
we created them, but we haven't issued them to them because we never had online orientation for them.
Okay.
Emma, for someone to get that email address, do they have to first register? Because some of us are not yet registered.
No, Eddie, I can tell you, no, it's not necessary. You don't have to be registered on Zivasti. Vincent, do you have a question?
No, Doctor. The mode of getting for us as users, the faculty already has our email addresses. They've been communicating with us. So they can get those email addresses, then the usernames.
Roger, we mean email addresses. Email addresses. As a student, you're entitled to an
we don't have.
Yeah, so Emma is going to communicate that to you. Is going to pass on all this information to you. Now, there is, of course, $1 million question. I think some comments were going on about how long a lecture should go on for. Normally, a physical lecture at Rubaga starts from 6 to 9, but we have to take note that we are online. Yeah, so there's only so much attention one can give online. So we want to discuss about the maximum number of hours we can have online. Eddie is saying we still have some 2 hours. Eddie, that's being very unfair.
For me, I have an opinion.
Yes.
In regards to the online classes, I don't think they need to drag on for all these 4 hours. Even if we have a 2-hour class,
yes,
it is enough. Even if 1.5 hours, it is enough.
Yes, Kenneth,
the rest of the
you're
things,
absolutely right.
Yes,
you're absolutely
because it is
right.
an online class. It's not like maybe we're physical, but an online class shouldn't drag on for a very long time.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
As
Long as
you're
we get
right.
the most important points, then the rest we can always discuss outside the class here. Then one more thing, Doctor.
Yes.
Tomorrow you are talking about preparing the content for us and putting it into Moodle and things like that. So does it mean that tomorrow we shall just maybe use that time maybe for reading through that content you're giving us? Then next week on Friday, that's when we continue?
Yes, please. And I will also activate a discussion forum on Moodle so that we can start the discussion even before Friday.
Yes. There is no problem.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, I look at it as something better as compared to dragging these classes for a long period of time online.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah.
Doctor, what time are we starting lectures tomorrow?
Tomorrow we said we are not going to have. I'm going to use that time to organize myself, especially on Moodle and getting up the content ready. So from tomorrow, use that time. The articles I upload, use that time to just read through and then start an online discussion on Moodle. But however, we normally with the previous class, we would agree on what time to start. Some would say 8, others 9 a.m. The Saturday class. The Friday class, we can start from 5 to 7. Then the Saturday class, we can start either from 8 or from 9. Please give your opinion.
What time?
We have a WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
I think we shall first discuss privately there. Then we shall give you the final verdict when we have already come up with a solution that will also be that will also work for you very well.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Maweje, do you have something to say? Kizito, Maweje first.
Yes, Doctor. I needed clarification on the Saturday lectures, whether they are going to be physical. There has been a very big discussion on our WhatsApp group about physical online. Members are saying 70 physical, other 30 online, like that. So I just want you to clarify whether we are going to be, even to the next Saturday, next weekend, we shall be meeting online, or Saturday we might have to get in class.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, one of the first things I did was to tell you where I am physically. Yeah. I am in Kienjojo district, deep in the village. Okay. My one big disadvantage is that since 2021, I took on 100% the family business, which is the tea business. So I am completely unable to come to Rubaga. So for me, unfortunately, I have to teach online. Somebody here is making a comment. Somebody who has said that he is actually in Nairobi. So we also have another member of the class who is also learning remotely. So for me personally, as a lecturer, me as Sheba, that is my one big issue. The fact that I am deep here in the village. Vincent, who else has a comment? Is it Kenneth or Kizito?
Yes, let me just add on top of what you said.
Yeah.
Me, in my opinion, I believe, okay, I don't know whether it will work for the rest of us all, but I think we should just take on these classes online and just go maybe to the campus just once in a while. But the bulk of the classes should actually be online for convenience, because now, when you look at some other people who are up country, it means now come to town, go back up country, come back, go back. But here you can study on your own convenience. Even in case you never manage to maybe be online, and you can always get the recordings and go through them. And the rest of the work can be more of consultation work as compared to doing it the way it has been done on an undergraduate level, whereby you have to sit in class and see the teacher directly. And for me, I would advocate for the online classes.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I don't know whether it works for the rest.
Kizito, you had something to say?
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. As we meet next Saturday, because next Friday rather, what do you expect from us? You after uploading the content, the research on Moodle, do we need to come with something, or what do you expect from us? Do you need what's the expectation?
We're just simply going to have a discussion on the research problems you identified. What were the research problems in each article? And so that after this discussion, I can see where you are at understanding. So I'm not going to grade that discussion. It is simply going to open up a discussion for us on what a research problem, research capital R, is. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor.
You're welcome. Ongola, you have a question?
Thank you, Doctor. I'm sorry, I have not been privy to be on the WhatsApp group. And so the members may forgive my question maybe. But what I'm seeing is we are speaking this module for this week and even next week. And I don't hear, is this the only module we are covering for some time, or Maybe I'll pick this later on in the timetable, but I'm just seeking some clarity.
Okay. So the master's classes run on modular basis. That means you're given, I think, 6 weeks to do a module and finish. So essentially, you have 6 weeks of doing this module, and throughout the 6 weeks, I assess you coursework, and then finally I give you the final assessment, and then you move to the next module.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, Maweja, you had something to say?
Yes, doctor. The last one. How many hours are we looking at for Saturday, the Saturday class? Since ideally it's supposed to be a whole day, are you having a total number of hours that you will dedicate for the Saturday class?
Now, like we said, with online classes, it really doesn't need to drag on. What I'm going to encourage is to use all the features that are on Moodle. So, for example, we have a discussion forum. At the end of each weekend, I activated a discussion forum where you can post questions. And even like Eddie said, we can actually upload a recording. If need be, I can pass on to, for example, I've been working with people with those in ICT, David Musoke. I think now that we have Emmanuel, I can also work with him, where I can upload something, a video, a pre-recorded video, maybe answering questions, and you go ahead and listen to it and maybe post even more questions, so that throughout the week we are discussing. But when we meet physically we meet online, virtually, the live online classes, we have already had a full week's discussion. So the objective is, let us use the e-learning platform Moodle also to its full extent, that we're not just uploading PDF files, but we're also actively engaged throughout the week.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other question?
Mine is not a question, doctor.
Mm.
Just maybe appreciating the knowledge you've given us, and we are hoping to build more and interact more on this whole thing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your appreciation. Dennis?
Yes, doctor.
Yes. Dennis,
Thank you, doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, doctor. Mine is about the model that we are going to use to study online.
Mm-hmm.
Since tomorrow we don't have a class, is maybe Emmanuel Kasos can help us to take us through in the app and maybe share with us the account that we're going to use, so that by next Friday we are ready to attend the class, and maybe you have tested our accounts and they're working. Because now I think we don't have a permanent group, either WhatsApp group. That is where we are using as the Faculty of Science, ICT and IS, because we are just, I think there is one group which I'm in, and we just put it yesterday, and there are like 6 in it. And here I see we are over 35, we are 36.
Yes. That is no problem. If that's okay with Emma, Emma, I'll just make sure that tomorrow by 11, I'm done with the course unit in Moodle. I'm done with rearranging it.
I have a suggestion.
Yes, please.
I don't know at what time we're heading to today's class. I don't know.
Actually, we had said we should be ending now 7, but
Yeah,
we should have ended at 7.
If we can end now, I beg to use some little time before, at least now.
Okay, please do.
People with issues such that I listen on I is on my work, so that I also concentrate on what you are going to post for us.
Okay, okay. Please, Emma, do so. So can I leave Eddie? I think you've really asked a lot of questions.
No, one last one.
Yes.
Now, doctor, you're giving us this coursework. Okay, there's the assignment you're going to do tomorrow. That of identifying the problem and the methodologies in the articles. Isn't that so much technical for starters?
No, I just want you to identify a research problem that is in the article. That's all. And it's not, like I said, this is not gradable. I'm not grading you on this. I just want to see your understanding of what.
There's another class for the basics.
Yes.
Okay.
This wasn't a class. This was just a discussion.
Okay.
This was a discussion. We haven't shared any slides, nothing. So don't worry about it. Is there any, I'm seeing Margaret. Let me get a lady's question. Margaret.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So there's something I've typed in the chat about the exact number of modules we would have to do for the entire course. I saw you were talking in the chat somewhere, they were talking about 10 modules or something. Maybe.
For the number of modules, that one I'm not.
You could just clarify on that.
For the number of modules, let me just quickly peruse through Moodle. Maybe it may give me an idea.
They're about 20 on the website. They're about 20 on the website.
Is that for IS or ICT? Because there are two different programs here.
Yes. IS has about
20.
About 20.
Okay. Let me see for ICT. Hold on. I think for MSc ICT, it may be about 13 or 14. Not sure, but about that number.
Okay, so then my other additional question was, some of us are really just trying to join this IT or information or computer science world. What could you, maybe some of the content that you would recommend to us to read as we try to get to where those of Edgar are as of now? It could be a website, it could be any source of information. Thank you.
Are you IS or ICT?
IS.
IS.
Yes.
I think that the thing that may most, if you're just getting into the IT world, the thing that may mostly disturb you will be the modules on programming. I think so. The rest, no, not really. So what I would suggest is go to YouTube, get those videos, try those videos out. Just practice. That's what I would say. practice whatever programming is there. Essentially, if I'm talking about research, now just speaking on my side, if I'm talking about research, for me, again, I would emphasize building a system is not the point. It's the new knowledge that comes up. And for me, if I was on a panel, I would not ask you how you developed the system. I wouldn't. But for the sake of going through the modules of programming and so on and so forth, because still, even ultimately, the 6 weeks of learning is just not enough. But what I would suggest is, for you, Margaret, for the thing that may mostly disturb you will be the programming part. So I would suggest go to YouTube, start with those videos which start with the basics of programming, and just start from there. The programming languages you can look at, I'm not sure what's new there, but Java is one you should look at. I don't know if they still do PHP. I've really not been in programming for some good years. I haven't taught programming for some good years, but I would say start with something like Java.
Doctor, can I come in?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Enoch once again. And I've been hearing you, Doctor, you keep talking about not gradable, not gradable. In other words, when do you grade? And if so, what is the percentage does this homework you give contribute to the main exam?
Okay, now the thing that I'm going to upload on Moodle is the course outline. So the course outline will indicate the coursework you're going to do, when it will be given, and what its percentage is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think we are done with the questions. Can I hand over to Emma? I leave you guys.
It is okay.
So I'm going to stop